What's up, everyone? Good morning. I'm generally known as the operations chick, and for the next 45 minutes to an hour, my ask is that when you think of that word operations, for most people, like the mind goes blank, maybe we throw in a few SOPs, generally boring stuff. I'd like you to take the word operations, and I would like for you to replace it with the word profit. Is that okay? Can I ask that we do that? It's a sexier word, right? And what we're going to talk about today is how to reclaim what I call hidden profit, right? The profit that exists inside of your business right now and instead is leaking out of the bucket before you can get to it. And that's what we're gonna dive into. So what do I mean when I say the bucket? Every single business I know has what I call the leaky bucket problem. And it looks like this. Right now, your business is a bucket. Sales, marketing, what we just heard about, is piping water into that bucket, right? That's cash flow, that's revenue, that's the water and cash coming in. And the goal is we want more water in the bucket, we want more revenue, we want more cash. But every single bucket has gaps, has holes, has leaks, and that water that you're working so hard to pipe into your bucket is leaking out through these cracks. The job of operations, very simply put, is to be this guy from that like old infomercial, you know, like the amazing magic tape, right? The job of operations, the job of your operator is to find the cracks and to close them, to go all through your business and look everywhere and try and find where is money leaking through the inefficiencies within my business and what can I do to close those gaps in order to keep that water inside the bucket. What's so powerful about that is that that money is effectively free because you've already paid to acquire the revenue. Can we all agree that marketing and sales is amazing, is essential, but is also expensive, right? I have to spend money to make money. I have to spend marketing, I have to spend sales commission in order to bring that water into the bucket. The water's already in the bucket. It costs us nothing to keep it there. And so this is why fundamentally operations is not responsible for bringing more water into your bucket. Operations is responsible for keeping it in your bucket. And all of that money currently is leaking, and just by keeping it in, it drops straight to the bottom line. It affects profit, not revenue. Does that make sense? So operations equals profit. And when I talk about operational efficiencies and finding operational efficiencies in your business, what I'm talking about is finding hidden profit. The places that profit is leaking out, that just by identifying and closing the gap, we're able to keep it in and get that profit back for free. Okay, perfect. So now that we understand the concept, and hopefully I've made a good enough argument for why you should pay attention to me for the next 60 minutes, my promise to you, oh, yeah, this is me. Guys, I just like operations. Like, that's really all you need to know about me. I'm a huge ops nerd. I'm a former COO. This is where I got my start. And at the end of the day, operations, I really believe this, is not just about building the most profitable version of your business, but also about building the best version of your life in relationship to your business, right? What Corey just said of like, if we don't have the right ops, we're going to compensate for that with 80-hour working weeks. I don't accept that trade-off. I don't accept you guys sacrificing your time and your lives and your loved ones for the sake of running a business that fundamentally doesn't need you to be working 80-hour weeks if we had the right systems and we had the right team in place. So operations is not just a lever for growth, it's not just a lever for profit, it's a lever for freedom inside of your business. And the good news is that if we have operations, we get to have all three. We get to grow faster, more profitably, with less time. When we are working with a client, we have something we call the Spyglass method. There are 6 core pillars to this method, and I want you to think of these as the 6 pillars of hidden and lost profit. Inside each of these pillars, and we're gonna cover these one by one today, there is profit. I can guarantee it right now, there is profit leaking out of your business. And my promise today is that not just are we going to talk through theoretically how to find it, we are actually going to find it. We're going to find it right now. So everybody pull out your phones, grab this QR code. This is a tool that we just built called the Lost Profit Finder. And if you would like, if you do this with me today, then we are actually going to go pillar by pillar, identify exactly where the profit is leaking out of your business, across all 6 of these, and then by the end of this presentation, you will have an email in your inbox telling you exactly which of these 6 pillars is costing you the most profit and what you need to do to close it. The very first pillar is team. When our clients come to us, I would say team is probably their biggest point of frustration. My team is underperforming. My team doesn't work as hard as I do. My team is coming to me for everything. I feel like I'm the only one moving things forward. If I stepped away from the business, nobody would have their foot on the gas pedal. My team is not pushing as hard as I can. So generally what we see is that that happens for one of 3 reasons, or some combination of these 3. The first reason is you got the wrong people in the wrong seats. So either we've hired incorrectly, we don't have the right talent for what our business needs, or we don't have the right seats on the bus. People aren't sitting in the right places according to their skills and competencies. The second big mistake we see is you have the right people, you hired A players, but I haven't given them the right expectations. No all-star athlete can run a race if you don't tell them where the finish line is. I might have all-star athletes, but if I haven't set expectations around what success in their role looks like and where we as a company and team are running, how can I expect them to chase that finish line as hard as I am? So maybe we have the right people, we just don't have the right expectations. Or maybe we have the right people, but we don't have the right leadership. And I'm gonna focus on this one in the next pillar. Leadership is a pillar in and of itself. But these are the top 3 mistakes. And I wanna tell a quick story. We had a client who before working with us had hired a COO, and it was all 3 of these things. He didn't have the right person, he hadn't clearly set expectations, and he wasn't leading his COO in such a way that they were set up for success. And the result of that is that I checked in, he was a bud, so I checked in every 2 to 4 weeks. Hey, how's it going with your COO? And every single time he said the same thing. He's like, Jhana, I'm just not sure. I'm not sure if it's me and my expectations for this person are too high. I'm not sure if it's them and they're not the right person for the role. All I know is that I'm disappointed all the time. But I'm gonna give him another shot. Let's give it another couple weeks. He's new in the role. I wanna see if he can do it. I really trust the guy, I like him, he's a bud. And it went like that for 6 months until he finally fired him. We then turned around and got the right COO in the role, and he sent me this screenshot 1 week later. My COO that you suggested I put in place just saved us no $100K or more on advertising spend because we were using the wrong pixel. 1 week, $100K, pretty big gap in the bucket. Would we agree? $100K per month, because that's how much they were spending through the wrong pixel, right? So on one hand, this is a success story, right? This is a win, it's a testimonial. But I look at this a different way, which is that having the wrong COO in the role was costing him $100K per month. The cost of inaction, the cost of the current state, for 6 months was $600,000 just for having one wrong person in one wrong seat with the wrong expectations, without the supportive leadership. This is why, on average, the cost of a mishire is 1 to 3x their annual salary across the board. If we go to leadership, that becomes 5x, 10x. And when you look at stories like this, that becomes a little bit easier to see, right? It's not just the cost of hiring this person, onboarding and training them, getting them up and running. All of that is very expensive. It's not just the cost of then having to fire that person and go through the entire process again to try and hire the right person. It is the opportunity cost of what could have been saved if you had the right person in the role. It's the $100K that was found in 1 week just by having the right person in the role. So the cost of these gaps is real. Just because we don't know where the gaps are doesn't mean they don't exist. And the role of our team is to be looking for and finding those gaps with us. The role of our operator, our COO or head of operations, is to be constantly finding these gaps in the bucket and closing them. Now, our team cannot do that if we do not support them. You can't have an A-player team if you are not an A-player coach. And this is my personal philosophy, which is that our business fundamentally is a reflection of ourselves. Our business will never grow faster than we do. If you want to grow your business, the very first place to look is in the mirror. Who is the version of me that got me and my business to this point? And who is the version of me that I must become in order to get my business to the next level? This is a tough pill to swallow often, because what it means is that everything that's currently frustrating you, disappointing you in your company, we can somehow, some way attribute that back to ourselves. That team member that keeps coming to me for everything, that somehow is a gap in my leadership. How I've trained them, how I've set them up for success, how I've empowered them to make their own decisions. That ball that keeps dropping, that's the system I didn't build, or didn't build well enough to prevent that ball from dropping, right? It all comes back to us. That's tough, but it's also incredibly empowering, because do you know what is easier than having to go out, like fire your entire team, hire new people, only to have them also disappoint you, which I promise they will, is to level yourself up as a leader. We can do that immediately. We can do that tomorrow. And it's not going to cost us anything, cost of a couple of leadership books, but the ROI is astronomical. On average, well-led teams are 2.1x more productive. Same group of people, same team, same labor cost, but twice the output. And the only thing that changes is the leader. So to give you guys an example from my COO days, our client success managers, I ran a digital marketing agency, and I was coaching a lot of agencies at the time, and so I knew that the average agency in our niche with our type of services, their client success managers were managing 30 to 40 accounts each. My client success managers, by the time I got them fully up and dialed, were managing between 80 and 110. So for the same labor cost, my guys were handling 3x the amount of revenue, right? Not even 2.1x, 3.1x the amount of revenue for the same cost, right? So if their team is on this growth curve and we're spending this much money to have our client success team in place, what is the output that I am getting back for those dollars? Am I getting a 1x return or am I getting a 2.1x return? And again, the difference isn't your people. The difference is you, and it is free to become a better you. So for free, we get to double the output. In my case, that was $180K in salaries that I didn't have to hire every single year because my team was more productive. And I didn't have to build a huge team of CSMs. I just had to become a better leader, and it saved me 180 grand. So if you have a small team, this is your opportunity to not have to build an enormous team. If you have a big team and you're like, man, I know these guys could be more productive, the good news is like, yeah, they can. You don't have to change anything other than your own leadership, and your team is going to be able to start generating more revenue for you. And again, that 180K is pure profit. It drops straight to the bottom line. So let's talk about meetings for a moment. I know, like, guys, I get to talk about all the sexiest things, but I promise you, this is gonna be good. Okay, so we had a client. He had a team of about 20 people. He had an all-hands meeting. His entire team came together for an hour twice a week. And essentially that meeting was him going around the room and going down the client roster and essentially just saying, where are we at with this? Where are we at with this client? Where are you at today? What are you working on? What do you need from me? How many of you have a meeting like this with your team right now? Okay, so let's run some numbers on this, shall we? So in this case, a team of 20 people, 2 hours a week, let's say on average 50 working weeks a year, that's 2,000 hours. Right? 2,000 hours were being spent on that meeting. When we multiplied that by his average salary, that meeting cost him $62,000 every single year. So just to have the meeting cost him 62 grand in labor cost. Pretty expensive. What's wild about that is that that meeting was totally unnecessary. And if you guys are having a meeting like that right now, where literally the point of the meeting is just what's going on, the very good news I have for you is that that meeting is entirely unnecessary with the right systems, which we're gonna get to next. So that's what we did. We came in, we fixed his systems, we worked him a little bit, and he was able to take that meeting entirely off his calendar. So we just made his company $62,000 in lost profit. Would we agree? Right? It's labor cost he's already paying for. It's his team's time. It's already been paid for, that now, instead of being on that meeting, gets to be put to work. So it's not just the 62 grand saved, it's the 2,000 hours, 2.5 weeks. How much revenue does your company do in 2.5 weeks? If I could wave a magic wand and give you an extra 2.5 weeks this year, how much more money would you make? That is very real revenue. That is not being generated because your team is spending that time on a meeting. And again, the very good news is that it doesn't cost us anything to talk better, to talk less, to be more efficient and more effective in our meetings. We can do that starting tomorrow. I have a meeting menu. I'm happy to share it with anybody here so that we can immediately downsize the amount of time spent talking, because time spent talking fundamentally is time not spent bringing revenue into your business for you and for your entire team. And when it comes to your team, that is time you are buying to be put to work on a meeting instead of being put to work on the things that will make you money. And remember, guys, that was one meeting, 60 minutes, twice a week. How many hours are you and your team on Slack on average every day? 2, 3, 5? When we run the math of communication, you are paying an astronomical amount of money to have your team talk. And if we really look at what is being talked about, I can almost guarantee at least half of it doesn't actually need to be talked about if we have the right systems. When we run this with our clients on average, there's 6 figures in profit hiding inside of their meetings. And again, it's a quick tweak to the system, it's a better meeting flow and meeting agenda, and all of a sudden, all of that profit reappears inside of your business.
Are you saying Slack is a bad thing here?
I am saying that how most clients use Slack is a bad thing. People gotta talk. We can all agree on that, right? Meetings are necessary, but are they as small a number of meetings as possible? Are they as efficient and effective as possible? And are we saying what needs to be said so that that chatter doesn't bleed into the rest of the day? This is actually a really good point that you raised that I want to touch on really quick. What's more efficient? A 15-minute huddle with your team at the beginning of the day, or 2 hours of everyone's time back and forthing within Slack, right? Sometimes the answer is more meetings, but the right meetings where we're talking about the right things so we can pull all of that communication into one 15-minute sprint, and then Slack can go quiet and everyone can get their work done for the rest of the day, right? So it's not about more meetings, less meetings, it's about the right meetings. It's about if we need to talk, are we talking in the most efficient way possible? Of all of the places to fix, guys, this is probably the lowest hanging fruit because it's just so quick. We can get you 6 figures of profit over the next 12 months just by auditing your meetings. Let's talk about systems. And I want to share a little bit more about myself. There's many friendly new faces that I have in this room. When I kind of whoopsied my way into operations, my very first COO role, at the time, I was living full-time in this van. I was traveling through North and South America with this guy, and he was starting and scaling a digital marketing agency, and I became his COO. That's how I found my way into ops. And we had this vision where we were gonna go around all of South America, we were gonna see all these incredible places. He was a paraglider, I learned to paraglide, we might go paragliding tomorrow. And so I had this vision for my life and what my life was gonna be like, right? I was gonna go to all these incredible places. I was gonna be this badass paragliding chick. It was gonna be so fun. And then I became his COO, and before I knew it, I was putting in 8, then 9, then 11-hour days running his business, because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't even know what operations was. And I was there making sure that the day-to-day of the company was running, trapped inside of a van, which is like the living space smaller than a prison cell, on an office chair that was like also my toilet, you know? Like not the most glorious vision for what I had for my life. And I remember it reached this breaking point. We were in Santiago, Chile, and I really wanted to go explore Santiago. There was this paragliding competition. I really wanted to get out there. And instead, I spent 5 back-to-back days stuck inside this van. I got like 200 steps in the entire week. And I was like, what the f***? If I was gonna sit in front of a computer for 11 hours a day, I would get a house with running water. You know, like this isn't worth it. And I'm so grateful for that because for me, the van and my idea and my vision for the life that I had invested so much time and energy into living became a forcing agent. I had to figure out how to run the business a different way if I was going to stay committed to this life that I had committed myself to. I had to figure it out, right? And that forcing agent forced me to learn how do I go from 11-hour days down to 6-hour days, and then to 4-hour days. The challenge I see is that because entrepreneurs are so hardworking, we are so willing to outwork every problem that becomes our default response. Is there a fire in the business? I will fix it. Is there something to be figured out? I will figure it out. Is there a dropped ball? I will pick it up. We outwork every problem without forcing ourselves to come up with a better, more efficient way to solve the problem. We become the most important resource for our business, and we build a business that becomes dependent on us showing up that way. Would you agree? If you learned from an early age to walk, but you always had a crutch, would you learn to walk with the crutch? And then what happens if that crutch tries to step away for a weekend, or God forbid, an entire week to have a vacation with their family? Everything falls apart. Slack blows up. We can't do it. We haven't built a business that can walk on its own. And we've done that through one of our own superpowers, which is our willingness to outwork any problem. So what I have found, guys, and what this van experience taught me, is that if you don't have a system, you become the system. I'm gonna say it again. If you don't have a system, you become the system. If I have a system and my team has a question, they'll go to the system. If I don't have a system, who are they gonna go to? Me. If there is a piece of client information that they need and they don't have a place to go access it, who are they gonna bother on Slack at 11 p.m.? Me. If it's a Sunday and a client fire just exploded and they don't have the training or the SOPs to deal with that, who has to put out that client fire? Me. If you don't have a system, you are the system. And let's run the math on that really quick, right? How much time do you currently spend, and we're gonna get to this in the type form, telling your team what to work on That's something a system should do, right? Like the meetings we were talking about, that can be systemized. Doing repetitive tasks, picking up the same drop balls or putting out the same client fires, a system can do that too. How many hours are you currently doing that? And if we were to calculate the hard cost of your time, which your business is also paying for, right? Your business pays you money. So if we look at the hard cost of your time against how many hours you're spending being the system, that is pretty freaking expensive. Would we agree? Our average client, their like average hourly cost is like $150 an hour, $300 an hour. ClickUp costs $200 a month. So I am trading tens of thousands of dollars every single month in my own time for a solution that would cost me $200 a month. And plus, what could I do with hundreds of hours of my time that wasn't spent being the system, but instead got to be spent generating revenue, marketing, sales, content? If I was to wave a magic wand and ask you, hey, here's 100 hours back, what are you going to spend it on? I bet you could tell me. You could tell me all of the things on your wish list that you wish you had more time to do because you know it would bring that next wave of growth into the business, and you can't do it because you're stuck being a system. That is very real revenue. That is very real growth that could have been generated, but is not because we are the system. So it is unbelievably expensive. It's actually like unacceptably expensive to not have the right systems so that your team and your business can start to run without you. We have an exercise that we do with our clients to break down this math just so we can show them what this looks like in their own business. And on average, they can make between an extra $500,000 to sometimes $5 million in the next 12 months just by getting the right systems, just by getting their time back. The cost of inaction is astronomical. And if anyone's feeling a little bit called out right now, I apologize. And also, I'm not sorry at all. Because now that you know, we can do something about these gaps. I just didn't know before. Nobody ever taught me how to run a business of the size that I have today. The reframe I offer my clients is you have earned the right to these problems. You have done so well and grown yourself so successfully that now we have to figure out something weird like how to optimize our meetings. Didn't know how to do that, but I have earned the right to unlock 6 figures of profit just by learning to talk better. It's a cool problem to have earned the right to solve. So let's keep going then. Oh, we should talk about AI, probably, right? We have the most amazing Mr. Ashton Shanks here. He's gonna blow our minds when it comes to actually, like, what is AI, how to use it, how to bring it into your business. What I wanna talk about is the trend that I'm already seeing inside of our clients' businesses when it comes to AI as this kind of like magic productivity pill, right? Obviously, AI is huge. It represents huge potential gains when it comes to what we are able to create with less and less cost, less and less people. But what I have found is that everyone is so excited about AI that we are just like throwing it into our businesses willy-nilly everywhere, and we don't actually get to see the gains of this technology. Because while we're using it, we're not using it critically. We're not using it strategically. We're not overlaying it in the parts of our business where it's actually going to drive the most amount of revenue and the most amount of growth. So when I look at AI, at least as of today, the bottleneck that I see isn't the technology. The technology's great. It's the humans using the technology. Do we know how and where to put this tech to work? And specifically, when I say we, I mean, is it just me, the founder, staying up until 2 a.m. with ChatGPT, figuring this thing out, and then coming in the next day with 10 new ideas of how to use it in my business? Or is it we, my team, collectively committed to figuring this tech out, to trial and erroring our way through and finding ways of becoming more productive and efficient using this tech, right? Your team is still the unlock here. Everything I just said about team and leadership, I think becomes even more true when magnified through the lens of technology and AI. If you have a team of high-performing critical thinkers who are all putting this to work, you will exponentially compound and accelerate the rate at which you learn, develop, and utilize this technology. If instead it's just you, and now you're needing to tell your team what to do every single second, nothing has fundamentally changed. Yes, use AI, and don't be the only person using AI. Continue to put your focus towards how do I build a high-performing team and how do I lead them in a high-performing way so my team is now a driver alongside me when it comes to how to utilize this tech inside of the business. Cool, let's keep going then. Data, this is the 5th pillar. We're almost there, guys. I want to tell you a client story on this one just because it illustrates the point so beautifully. We had a client at the beginning of this year. They were doing $15 million in top-line revenue. absolutely crushing it. The guy was working so hard. This founder was putting in 70, 80, 90-hour weeks just to keep everything running, just to get that 15 million through the door. And at the end of last year, when he looked at his financials, his profit margin at the end of the year came out to 0.5%, 80K in profit. He was putting in 80-hour weeks for a year, and what he made out of all of that effort was 80K. As a space, we are all so focused on top-line revenue. But what does 15 million matter if you are only bringing in 80K at the end of all of it? And the problem is that he had no idea where the money went. Like, he had no idea. We audited his business. He had no financials. He was just looking at his bank account, pretty much, just like every single month. So if we don't know where that money is going, how can we get it back? If we're not tracking what's happening in our business, how do we know what to fix next? Especially as our business gets bigger and bigger, and it honestly just becomes too big for us to keep an eye on everything. Trying to run a business, trying to scale a business without data is like trying to drive a car really fast next to a cliff edge with a blindfold on. It's terrifying, and you will get so stressed out trying to keep an eye on everything when you just fundamentally cannot. Data is taking the blindfold off. Data is visibility around what is actually happening in my business, what's actually working, what is not working, and where do we need to focus next. So the challenge is that he'd stuck himself in this vicious cycle where he was selling like crazy, working his ass off, not bringing in any money at the end of the day, and his only solution was, okay, I guess I just have to sell more. And there's that old adage, sales fixes every problem. Sales does not fix this problem. Sales actually makes this problem worse, because the more water you pipe into your bucket, the larger the cracks become. And you will put yourself on an ever-accelerating hamster wheel, and your solution to that problem will be run faster, until at some point, you break or the wheel breaks. And that's the large churn event that Corey was talking about, where you actually can't keep up with the rate of your own growth, and you're not actually bringing in enough margin to reinvest it back into just getting off the wheel altogether. So data is how we fix this problem. On the positive side for this client, we're about to finalize his COO hire. It's gonna cost him about 150K in the salary of this like high-level COO, super financially savvy, super data savvy. And that person, by the time they're done, should have generated between 3 to 5 million in recovered lost profit. By the time his business is back up to healthy levels of profit 12 months from now, he will have made $3 to $5 million, not in revenue, in profit. So the ROI on that one hire is 20 to 33x. Have you ever run an ad that got you 33x ROI, right? In profit. So this is why the most fundamental question I get asked about operations is, what is operations and how does it make me money? This is how it makes you money, by finding and closing the gaps in your bucket. And every gap that is closed is not top line revenue, it's profit back inside your pocket. Okay, last one is strategy. And this one's an interesting one, because when we audit our clients' businesses, strategy tends to be the #1 root cause, but it is also the hardest to find. And so I tend to explain it like this. You guys are all marketers, right? Think about your Facebook marketing ads manager for a moment. Imagine if every single day you woke up, every week, every month, you woke up and you launched some new ads, right? We're testing things all the time. We're launching new things all the time. Here's an ad. Here's some ad spend. Let's see how it does. And then we just continue to launch new ads all the time without looking at the ads that we already have live and asking ourselves the question, what is the actual return on ad spend for this ad set and this ad set and this ad set? We're just sending new ads live all the time without looking at the data. And we're not reallocating ad spend, right? All that ad spend is just burning a hole through these terrible ad sets that we have live that we're not looking at, and it's just consuming all of this ad spend. And we're still launching new ads all the time without looking at that, without turning those ads off. And we only look at the ad set every 30 days. And at the end of 30 days, we're looking at the level of the ads manager and we're saying, yep, I made more money than I spent, so I guess I'll keep going. That would be a ridiculous way to run your ads. Do we agree? That is how most entrepreneurs run their business, their strategy. Except for ads, it's offers, new products, new low ticket, new high ticket, more upsells. Yes, we'll say yes to that client, even though we've never worked with a client in that niche before, but we're gonna figure it out. Let's do that too. And then when we're looking at return on ad spend, AKA profit, we're not looking at the level of the offer, we're looking at our P&L at the end of the month and saying, yep, I made more money than I spent, so let's launch some new offers. Fundamentally, this is how I see strategy run. We're saying yes to everything because it brings us top-line revenue. We launch a new offer, makes us money. But what we're not calculating is what is the cost of delivering on that offer What is the ROI on that offer? And when we step in and we do a profitability analysis like this for our clients, what we find is that about 80-20 perfectly applies. 80% of the clients you work with, 80% of the offers you run is generating about 20% of your profit. And on the flip side, only 20% of the things that you do are generating 80% of your profit. So what would happen if we grandfathered out and eliminated all of the things that we are investing ad spend in the metaphor, which is time and energy, right? Your team's time and energy, your time and energy is being invested into running offers that aren't making you any money. And if we were to identify those, phase those out, and then reallocate those resources towards the 20%, the things that actually drive the most amount of profit in your business, how much more profitable would you be? Give that 6 months, and we're focusing on the massive and major profit drivers in the company. How much more profitable would we be? So we need to start thinking about our business strategy the same way we think about our marketing campaigns. Not all ads are winners. Not every offer and idea that you have is a winner. Not because it won't work, but because it's not profitable. It's going to cost too much to generate the amount of revenue, even if it's bringing in a really sexy amount of revenue on the front end. But we would never know it unless we are running the numbers. Profit per, it's called the marginal cost of fulfillment. If you have that one metric, the marginal cost of fulfillment across each major product and offer that you launch, across each tier of client that you work with, I promise you, you will find that 20% of the things that you are doing are generating 80% of the profit. And then the very, very hard part about this is that we have to start to say no. We have to start to say no to the things that are looking really sexy on the front end and feel very exciting because we get to launch new stuff all the time and we love that. But when we really look at the numbers, are not generating profitability for our business. 6 core pillars, right? Team, leadership, communications, data, systems, strategy. Inside every single one of these pillars, there is water leaking out of your bucket. Here's the fundamental truth though, guys. That profit, whatever that number is been there. It's been leaking out of your business. It's leaking out of your business right this second. It's leaking out of your business last week, last month, and probably the whole last year. Just because we don't see the gaps doesn't mean they don't exist. And the hard part is that your lens as a visionary is all focused on this. Bring water in. More sales, more marketing. We need that. To be totally clear, not knocking sales and marketing. Every single business needs to have that constant resupply of water. But the challenge is if that's the only thing we're focused on, then we are working so hard to pay so much money to bring even more water in, only to have it turn around and leak out. So what we need is a complementary lens. We need the yin to our yang, and that's your operator. Every operator that I've ever worked with, known, or trained, the really good ones, they may not have the language for it, but what they see is the holes. They can't not see the holes. It's their naturally wired lens. Would you agree, Sally? Yeah, I look at any system, I'm like, but that could be better, that meeting's stupid, that seems dumb, right? Like, I don't know what I'm doing, but it just kind of feels like there's a better way. And that can be really frustrating to receive as a visionary because what it sounds like is problems. Like this person is always bringing me problems. Very annoying. What they're bringing you is profit opportunities. What they're trying to help the business become is more efficient. So the question just becomes, do they have the skills and the knowledge to do something about the problems that they see? Do they know how to close the gaps? And if yes, great, put them to work on this. Most often what I see in operators is that they are spent, their time is spent, being just as reactive and just as wild as the CEO. I'm now running around with my CEO trying to put out all of the fires, and now we've just doubled the dependency and doubled the problems, as opposed to my focus as visionaries on bringing water in, their focus as operators is on keeping the water in. And if you can free up their time and give them the skills and the knowledge that they need to do this, then you get to focus on revenue, they get to focus on the bottom line expenses, and the gap in between becomes your profit. And you are able to scale revenue while maintaining low expenses and scale your profit as you grow. Just to bring some final numbers to this. We had a client, they were operating right around break even when we started working with them. The dude was working his butt off. Again, 60-hour weeks, 80-hour weeks. And when I checked in with him 6 months later, he had an operator. We took that person, we trained them up. By the way, the guy was a VA in the Philippines, right? Amazing operators exist everywhere. He probably pays him like 60 grand. And within 6 months of taking that operator, training him up, teaching him how to find the gaps and what to do about them, they recovered $400K in hidden profit in the first 6 months. That 4x'd their profit margin, and freed up so much of the founder's time that he was able to reinvest in launching a whole new part of their SaaS product, a whole new revenue center, and they're on track to 3x their revenue. Again, revenue that could have existed but didn't, because all of the founder's time was spent buried in the weeds alongside his operators, right? 6 months. So the profit is here, and it's actually not as far away as it may feel. And the process of getting it back onto the table so you can put it in your pocket is not as hard as it may feel right now, provided you've got the right complementary skill set in the form of your operator, whose entire freaking job, all this guy did, was run around, find gaps, and close them for 6 months. But the result to the business was 400K, plus 3x revenue that they can now bring in over the next 12 months. Are we starting to see the ROI of operations? Are we starting to have an idea of where profit may be leaking out of your business today? Great, then my job is done here. Guys, this is what's possible. This is also what's deserved. Y'all are working way too hard to have all of the water just leak out your bucket. Y'all are working way too hard to scale a company that is requiring ever more hours, time away from the things you love, time away from the people you love, for you to keep water constantly piping into a bucket and then just wasting it. I don't accept that for you. And it's not serving your company, because if we had more of that profit, we could actually reinvest it and grow and impact even more lives and grow even faster. This is your profit, it's yours. You've already worked and you've done all the work to get it into the bucket. My question is, are you willing to do what it takes to keep it? Okay, then I'm done. Thanks, guys.